Good morning. Yeah. Can you roll those shoulders back? Take a breath. Be in this body and in this space that we are sharing together. It is a big day for us. Man, it has been a journey getting us here today, like behind the scenes, so much going on to be ready for our annual meeting that's happening after worship, which is just this annual rhythm we have of taking a moment to name and commit to our mission and our ministry for the year to come, which is huge, and it's beautiful, and it always gets me all stirred up in like remembering what a tremendous gift this, like all this is for us. That this is the life and the church and the community of Jesus that we get to be together. Isn't that rad? Yeah, isn't that rad? Yeah. Whew. So knowing that today was our meeting, I wanted to lean hard into something from the Bible that informs a meaningful part of today. And it has to do with the Apostle Paul. So can we talk about the Apostle Paul for a minute? You okay with that? Yeah, you with me? Okay. So the Apostle Paul was many things. And he was a missionary, was one of those things. And he set out to establish and to nurture these communities of people across the ancient Mediterranean world who wanted to learn about and follow the way of Jesus. Of the 27 books of the New Testament, Paul, or one of his direct disciples, Paul is attributed as the author of 13 or 14 of those 27. So those are Paul's letters that he wrote to these Christians in the various cities where these pockets of the church were beginning to form. And Paul is the source then of so much of how the early church was carried on in the decades after Jesus' resurrection as the wildfire of Christianity spread. And one little piece of what Paul did in his letters is something that I want us to just drill into and run with this morning. And it's this phenomenon that happens at the end of many of Paul's letters. In the final chapter where we read a list of names. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen that? The greatest, longest of these lists is at the end of the book of Romans. So in Romans 16. And I want us to read it out loud together and just see what you notice about who these folks are, these names that are on this list. Because he says something kind of about each of them. And as we go through this little pro tip, of all the names, there's going to be 15 that you're going to look at and go, I have no idea how to say that word. So so many of those in this list. So a strategy I recommend is just one of two things. Either just go for it and just say something whatever it looks like, or just don't say anything. So one of those strategies, go without hesitation, or just don't say anything. It's quite funny, all that's in there. But I want you, I'm going to get them wrong too, so I'm just going to put that out there. So, but as we go through it, don't let the names kind of distract from what's being said about each of them as well, okay? It's a solid 16 verses that we're going to read, so there's some good length in there as well. So let's get ready. Let's read Romans 16, 1 through 16. Bum, bum, bum. All right, so here Paul writes at the end of his letter. Read with me, yes. I commend to you our sister Phoebe, a deacon of the church in Centuria. I ask you to receive her in the Lord in a way worthy of his people, and to give her any help she may need from you. For she has been the benefactor of many people, including me. Greet Priscilla and Aquila, my co-workers in Christ Jesus. They risked their lives for me. Not only I, but the churches of the Gentiles are grateful for them. Greet also the church that meets at their house. Greet my dear friend, Epaphras, that one, first convert to Christ in the province of Asia. Greet Mary, who worked very hard for you. Greet and Greet Andronicus and Junia, my fellow Jews who have been in prison with me. They are outstanding apostles, and they were in Christ even before I was. Greet Ampliatus, my dear friend in the Lord. Greet Urbanus, our co-worker in Christ, and my dear friend Stachys. Greet Apelles, whose fidelity to Christ has stood the test. Greet those who belong to the household of Aristobulus. Greet Herodian, my fellow Jew. Greet those in the household of Narcissus who are in the Lord. Greet Tryphena and Tryphosa, those women who work hard in the Lord. Greet my dear friend Persis, another woman who has worked very hard in the Lord. Greet Rufus, chosen in the Lord, and his mother, who has been a mother to me too. Greet Asyncritus, Phlegon, Hermes, Patrobus, Hermas, and the other brothers and sisters with them. Greet Philologus, Julia, Nereus, and his sister, and Olympus, and all the holy ones with them. Greet one another with a holy kiss. All the churches of Christ send you greetings. Woo! Isn't that list something? Right? Oh my gosh, anyone looking for baby names? Baby names? Here is your list. We actually got our daughter's name from this list, which is awesome. Junia. I think she was talking. I don't even think she heard it. Did you hear us say your name? Okay, great. So it says that she was an outstanding apostle, considered the first female apostle. Man, but Junia's like a whole other sermon for another time. As well as the fact like multiple women are named here, right? It's pretty cool. I love this list because do you know what this list is? This is a shout out. This is like shout outs, like Paul saying, hey there, tell him, hey, tell her, and tell him what's up, and like that guy and that person and that group. And so it's just delightful to read this and see this dynamic within these early Christian communities and how Paul communicated with them. Most of these communities, Paul writes to, again, are communities that he founded, and he spent time then with them teaching, and then this is how he writes back to that growing community. And even as it is like shout outs, hey, something happens for the folks on this list. You see, this is primarily a list of leaders, right? And influencers of the Christian community in Rome. And again, like note that Junia, as well as other women, like that's just, they're named as leaders, right? Paul is saying, I know these folks who have had incredible impact, who love and serve God, who have given their lives in love and leadership in your midst. I know them. This letter would have been read out loud and from the various pockets of Christians in Rome as they gathered for worship. And Paul, he's not only saying, hey, I know these folks. He's saying, I know them, and you should know them too, right? And not just know them, but follow them. Paul's long list of shout-outs here is a list of endorsements. He's nurturing the community's reception and support of these leaders among them, which is really beautiful. I think it's a beautiful thing for us to see here, how these early churches, just the way in which they networked and encouraged each other, and how Paul saw himself as like the personal hype team, right, for the folks who were giving their lives in leadership in a way of Jesus, many even like imprisoned, some who had given their lives literally. So, my friends, we have different kinds of experiences during our sermon time on Sundays here at Salt House, and it can often be something that isn't like a typical, like, here's your 3 points in a sermon, right? And we choose often to do things that are meaningful for us at the moment that we're facing as a community. And today is one of those days, because today I want to be like the Apostle Paul, like a hype team for our leaders here at Salt House, because we do have this annual meeting today at 11:15, which is something we have to do every May or June because Salt House is a nonprofit in Washington State. We are a recognized church in our denomination, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And according to our governing constitution and bylaws, between May or June, we approve our leaders for the coming year, as well as the budget that we've set for the money we will gather and spend together in our mission and ministry as salt and light for the world. And y'all, we have some amazing folks here at Salt House. Did you know that? Did you know that's who you are? We are. You are. You show up in all kinds of ways to love and serve and give of yourselves, and it's not always easy because we are beautiful and complicated humans who have to figure out how to do this thing together, and because the world is hard and hurting, and we are too, and yet we come and we create something together. And of all of y'all who show up and lead and serve, I want to focus my hype today on the groups of people that we must have in place based on our Constitution and bylaws. So please know that I could hype all of y'all when it comes to our volunteers. I could just go around and talk about you, but today it's about the particular leaders who, yes, I know them, and you should know them too, right? And not just know them, but follow them. So I want to nurture our community's reception and support of these leaders among us. So are you up for some hype? Awesome. All right. So let's do it. So first, let me offer some hype for our church council. So our church council serves as our governing board. Our constitution and bylaws have a long list of things that the council does and fulfills, and among its primary tasks, it says that the church council should be responsible for the financial and property matters of this congregation. It's like the buck stops with our council, right? Like they're in charge. Also, the Constitution says, the church council will attempt to discover through prayer and discernment what is best for this congregation. That they assist the pastors in nurturing the spiritual life of this congregation. And they care for this congregation's membership. So the council holds this beautiful mix of like what we would think as business, but also faith, because we live out that faith in our business too. So the church council meets monthly. Each member serves as a liaison to an area of ministry within Salt House, like a check-in person who's supporting what's happening in that area. So like children, youth, and family, and engaging homelessness and worship. And there are officer positions that make up our executive team of council, which is our president, vice president, and secretary. Then we have between 1 and 5 at-large members. The council then appoints a treasurer who, given the unique skill set of that role, does not have to be a member of our church. So friends, I want you to hear and see our church council just briefly today in anticipation of our meeting that we have later. So for this next year, some are returning and some are new, and others, so the ones that are new will have a chance to vote on them later today in our annual meeting. So we have 4 that gave us videos that we get to meet them in, and then I'll invite 3 more up when that's done. So here's our church council.
Hi, my name is Sara. I'm running for council president. I'm married to Marcio Costa. We've been attending here since 2016. I was raised Lutheran in the Lutheran church, but as I've grown and lived in this world and met various people, I've had chances to seek and question. And where I am at my faith now is I trust what Jesus says about loving the world. And so I trust him. I know that he loves the world more than I do, and that's the type of leader I want to follow.
Hi, Salt House. I'm Brenna Nelson, and I'm a returning member at large of your Salt House Council. I am a middle school science teacher in the Lake Washington School District, and I live in Bothell with my cat. I love all things outdoors, so I love hiking and running and biking. I love climbing, and I love reading. If you ever have book recommendations, I will literally read anything. As far as my faith, it's super important to me. I don't feel like I've been in this space for that long, this space as a Christian, and it's been really meaningful to me to be on council because it gives me a space to kind of live out my faith more than just the reading and reflecting and talking and thinking about it that I did in my first couple of years back in this space as a Christian.
My name is Tyler Harchie, and I'm a returning at-large member on the Salt House Council. I'm a software engineer, photographer, hiker, trail runner, and dad to my 3-year-old Shetland sheepdog, Fiona. I discovered Salt House shortly after graduating from Seattle University in 2017 and love that it embodies the very traits and qualities I had helped foster while serving in campus ministry as a student. A sense of exploration and worship, an interactive community, and practicing radical inclusivity. I am so grateful for Salt House, and I'm excited to continue serving the community.
Hi, Salt House. I'm Amber North, and I am one of your council at large that is returning this year. I live in the Kirkland area, and I run a nonprofit that works with survivors of domestic violence, trafficking, and trauma. My hobbies include things like a lot of travel these days, getting out into the outdoors with friends and family and fur babies, writing songs and poetry, and finding bougie mixology recipes. I love Salt House because of the radical welcome that is so core to our mission here. I got to experience that all the time in my work with Kirkland Place, and I now experience it daily in the ways that I feel seen and held and known as a member of this church. I love that whenever I bring someone to Salt House, I know their experience is going to be something like, I didn't know church could look like this. I'm curious to know more. There's really something unique happening here. So thank you so much for creating that all together, and wonderful to be on the journey with you. Thanks.
Can I invite up Erwin, Jim, and James to continue the intros?
You know, over the last 20 years as an adult, I've tried my best to get better and better at presenting in public, but it's never felt comfortable to me.
I hear you. Yeah.
You know, my son and I were on the news, and sorry.
Yeah.
I can definitely, I'll try my best. That seems like a lot better. My son and I have been on the news and gone and done all sorts of public things, but it's never gotten any easier to talk in public. So I apologize for seeming a bit nervous. My name is James. My family and I have been going to Salt House for, I'd say, about 5 years now. I feel drawn to Salt House because, in my own experience, seeing other churches, it seems like, whether they intended to or not, there was a message that was anti-science and anti-equal rights. Whether it was intentional or not, that was always there. And you would see microaggressions even in churches that claim to be welcoming. My family and I felt deeply drawn to Salt House because we never felt that that was the message here. We never felt like we had to compromise our better judgment or our integrity to be a member of Salt House. Okay? My family's always felt welcome here. My son enthusiastically says, "Are we going to church today?"
Yeah.
You guys, that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm here. I was asked to serve as council vice president. I do bring quite a bit of experience to the table, serving on councils of various sorts. I believe I can contribute there. But I do intend to, especially since speaking in public isn't always easy for me, I do intend to do a lot more listening than talking. I oftentimes joke that I think God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Let us do a lot more listening, and I think that's what good leadership will be like.
Awesome.
So.
Thanks, James. Yeah. Come over.
Am I next?
Go for it.
All right, good morning.
Morning.
I have no problem speaking in public, so I can be here for like 30 minutes chatting with you. So, hey, good morning. I'm Erwin. You've probably seen a lot of me lately as we've been talking about budget and finance updates. I started coming to Salt House, I think it's been 7 years ago, actually, through my wife. So I was raised Jewish. I really haven't practiced anything in a long time. But as my wife, like I said, Dawn started coming, and she's also a formal council member, nominating committee,
Rock
worked in
star.
nursery.
General rock star. Yeah.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's camping with the Girl Scouts this weekend with our older daughter on the one weekend it rained, so we'll see. And she started coming and said, hey, you know, they need help in the nursery. And I said, well, I don't care if I miss the service or not, so I'll help there. And then Jason needed help in the AV booth. And again, like, cool, let somebody else who wants to really be a part of the service do that so I could do there. And eventually, you all needed a treasurer. And I don't know if you know, the treasurer is picked by the council. It's not voted on. And I said, yeah, I can do that as well. It's just a bunch of spreadsheets, right? It's turned out to be a lot more this year, but it's been a lot of fun. And so I'm happy to help. So one, to give other folks the chance to experience the service, but also because I've never seen a place like Salt House, a faith-based organization that was so open and inclusive, and I really want to support that for others who are looking for it, who want a space like that. So I'm happy to keep serving as treasurer. It's been a lot of fun. Did I answer all the questions?
Yeah.
So,
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You'll see more of me later.
Yeah.
Good morning. Good morning. So I put together about a 30-minute presentation, but I was told that I only have 2, but then she said 1 minute, so good luck.
We can go to.
So I'm Jim Myers. I'm a chiropractor. Well, yeah, I've been a chiropractor for about 26 years. I had a practice. I just closed it a couple of years ago. COVID helped. I also am an expert witness in the chiropractic field. That's a long story about what that means. But I also am a personal coach. I like helping people have peace in their life because they deserve it. And I really want to help them have a fabulous life. just because they need it. So I am, my life has taken me in a lot of different turns around the country, and settled here and married a great woman, Marie. She's been around a couple of different times. And we live over in Redmond, and I grew up in a small Catholic church in a small town in northern Ohio. And, I really, when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, I thought, well, this is really cool, this whole church thing, until I had a really traumatic experience with a nun. And I went away from the church that day saying, I will never talk to God again. And now, 60 years later, almost, a couple of years ago, I started to look at, maybe I should turn around. I've gone through a lot of spiritual things, Buddhism, a lot of different things that I've tried on and looked at, and some of them have been very helpful throughout life. But I just felt like I needed to take a look back at Christianity. Went to a couple of services up north that were really a lot of fun. The music was great. There was a lot of, everybody was jumping around and hooping and everything. But coming from a Catholic background, that's a little much. I've gotten involved with Illuma, and you saw me up in front here a few weeks ago. And some of the brothers that I've met there told me about this little church in Kirkland that was pretty good. And so I decided to check it out. Came one time, and I left thinking, are these people for real? And you are. So when I came back, the number of times that I've been back, I'm really impressed with what this church is about. And so I've joined. I've asked recently to be a part of the council, and I'm very honored that somebody so new would be brought into that fold. And I'm happy to be here, and I have no idea what I'm in for. But I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim. Oh, man. Pretty awesome, right? So I want to say thank you to our incredible council members who are returning. Like, we've weathered a lot this year together, the growing pains of being an 8-year-old church. And I'm just so grateful for how each of you have given so much of yourselves, and how even just this week, we gathered together and we just had a renewing time of remembering what we're here for together in this life and way of Jesus. And so thank you to our returning folks. We have 2 folks who are not returning to council this year. So 2 of them, I think there's a slide. Yeah, so we have Robbie Denman, who's fulfilled her term as an at-large member the last 2 years, and Brianna Untai, who she decided at the end of May to step down as secretary. So I just want to say a huge thank you to both Robbie, especially for her collaboration in engaging homelessness, as she took some leadership there, and Brianna, as secretary, for not only expertly capturing our meeting minutes every time, but also for just reigniting our Sunday brunches, as she did all the volunteer coordination for that as well. So we give you 2 our thanks. Thank you. Yeah. So do note, we actually do not have a secretary candidate for our ballot today. The nominating team worked really hard to find a replacement on short notice, but that remains vacant. So I want you to know we can take nominations from the floor today. So prayerfully ask in your spirit if you would like to be the secretary on council this year, because that's possible. But you can also think about it. And so that's possible if you want to jump in today. I'll pull out the job description if you want to see what those tasks are for the secretary. Let me know. But also, if we don't have a candidate today, when we do find one, the council can approve that person to be the secretary, and then at next year's meeting, our congregation will officially vote them in too. So that's how that will go. And speaking of the nominating committee, whoop, whoop, so our nominating team is also elected each year at our annual meeting. So our 2 groups that we elect annually is our church council and our nominating team, okay? Nominating team is a minimum of 4 people who are tasked with bringing recommendations to the next ballot for the next year for our needed replacements for church council and for nominating team. So they are leader hunters, really, right? Like, they're on the lookout for folks with gifts to offer in leading us. It's a really vital, beautiful, and challenging task each year to find the right mix of folks for our leadership. So on today's ballot, you will find our new nominating team: Allison Myers, Alyssa Brambilla, Elisa Prinos, and Joy Gagne Robertson. So woohoo, thank you. and a huge thank you to our retiring nominating team, which was Chris Moore, Dean Robertson, Don Dolabowski, and Joelle Nawson. I want to tell you guys, the spreadsheet that y'all made is amazing. They tracked, this is who we talked to, this is what they said, here's what's possible. It was like your Excel dreams come true in this document. Just amazing. Thank you. There'll be a gift for us to use next year and years to come. So thank you, too, for just the love and care you brought to this process. So thank you to our nominating team. Yeah. All right, next I want to introduce the two other teams that our Constitution requires of us, whose members are not voted on by the community, but are appointed by the church council, right? So you're tracking how we get there? And they do particular work on behalf of the council and make recommendations to the council in those areas that then they make decisions about. We all vote then on church council nominating team. Council appoints people on these two teams. So first up, I want to talk about the personnel team. Our personnel team is appointed by our church council and works on behalf of the church council specifically to hold our staff in care and support. They help draft job descriptions and do initial interviews when we're doing hiring. They oversee salaries and compensation, paying attention to market trends and the cost of living each year, making a recommendation for our budget, as they did in the recent weeks as we move towards our annual meeting. They are a resource to me as I manage the staff, especially when we do annual reviews, and the personnel team is there as a resource for any of the staff in that capacity as well. So who are they? A personnel team. So Kim Saunders joined the team in the spring, rounding out that minimum of 3 personnel members that we're supposed to have. Kristen Pascal also said yes. Whoop, whoop, she's here. Joining the team very recently, and then huge thank you to Risa Reagan, who was on the team the last 2 years and continues on into the next year. So yeah, can we say woo, woo, thank you. This year we said goodbye to one personnel team as she rotated off from her term, and that's Trey Davidson. So to Trey, we say thank you. Your expertise has been a gift to me personally and just supported our staff and church so much. So thank you to Trey. All right, second team appointed by church council is the finance team. Whoop, whoop. The finance team meets monthly to oversee, you might guess, our finances. And as I said, the church council has fiduciary responsibility for Salt House as a nonprofit in Washington State. And the finance team is tasked with doing a deeper dive into the monitoring of our finances with a team of folks who know that work. They offer recommendations and insights as the council needs them, which includes the annual recommendation for our budget for the next year. So for that, they take the numbers, our budgeting process loosely goes, they take the numbers in regards to our staff's vision for ministry next year, they input the compensation recommendations from personnel, then council staff and personnel and finance work together in finalizing that budget. We've had a solid, die-hard finance team who have really been hanging in for years here at Salt House with our finances. So shout out to Dale Ketke and Scott Moore and Greg Finich, and joined by our church council treasurer, Erwin Dolabowski. Y'all, the intention and wisdom you bring to the care of our finances and how we thrive is just such a gift to us. So thank you for your faithful service to our finance team. All right, one additional leader I just want to mention that is also in our Constitution is our financial secretary, who's tasked with overseeing, amongst other things, the giving side of our finances. This is also appointed by council, the financial secretary. There should be a slide, but maybe there isn't. Yeah, so they see how the money goes in, how it's counted, deposited. The giving statements go out to donors, all in a really accountable and transparent way, operating separately from some of the other financial people who have their hands and eyes on other things, right? So we're saying farewell to our longstanding financial secretary, Scott Moore, who's over there. Not on the slide, but he's over there. Scott, thank you for getting and keeping our ship in shape. You're incredible, and we welcome also, so thank you. And we welcome our new financial secretary, Mark Templin, who's over there. Hey, whoop, whoop. Thank you for your yes. All right, so that's it for my shout-outs today. That's my own mini version of Romans 16. My shout-outs for our amazing leaders. We're going to hear many of these names and positions. We'll go over them again in our meeting as we gather at 11:15, which will be awesome as we continue to learn who these folks are and what the roles are and how this all works. But we intentionally wanted to shout out during the sermon time so that our whole community would know these leaders, whether folks are here in worship or at home or listening to the podcast later. We want you to know them. and we want you to follow them. I say that, and yet also, we do want your honest response, too. Like, you get to vote today. You get to do your own discernment about whether each of these leaders is the right fit for Salt House at this moment. You get to bring up questions in the meeting during that discussion time as we vote, and you get to vote. The same goes for our vote and discussion of our recommended budget for next year. We want your questions, we want your buy-in, and we want your vote that helps us prayerfully decide on the right course for our mission and ministry into this next year together. So as we think of those churches in Rome who received and read aloud Paul's letter, think of what it must have felt like for Phoebe, for Priscilla and Aquila, for Junia, for Andronicus, for all those 29 specific folks that Paul names, for them to be standing among the gathered community in a home or in temple. They were eager to hear a word from their traveling teacher friend, Paul. And after this epic theological letter that Romans is, right, all of that is read, and then they hear their own name celebrated, acknowledged. Wouldn't that be remarkable and encouraging? I hope our Salt House leaders feel even a little wisp of that today, because that's what we feel for them. And for all of us, I wonder how we can be like the hype squad for folks in our own lives too, right? Maybe not quite like Paul, like you don't have to write a formal letter and have it publicly read somewhere to like give a shout out to somebody, but what if we could at least pay attention to the leaders, the lovers, the servants in our circles this week? Who is blessing you in your life now? Who is that for you? Whether a friend or neighbor, parent, pastor, doctor, nurse, teacher, maybe especially our teachers right now, right? Bus driver. What could it look like to at least speak to them that same kind of appreciation and gratitude that Paul offers with his greetings? To tell your friend that's busting their butt off, man, I see how hard you're working. To our kids and students, man, I see you finishing school, and I'm so proud of you. To our teachers, man, you have grown these small humans so much this year. Well done, right? Because Paul wasn't just hyping so that the community would know its leaders. He was doing that too. But it was also a model for what it means for us to be people who see the work and sweat and love and tears it takes to show up and lead, to be people who appreciate those who lead among us. So who is this for you today? Salt House, I commend to you your leaders. Our church council, our nominating team, our personnel team, our finance team, our financial secretary. May we know them. May we grow with them and serve together in the year to come with gratitude and, I hope, continued shout outs. Yes? Amen? Amen.